Other human activities that affect the environment are industrialization, air pollution, intensive farming practices, such as use of heavy pesticides and fertilizers, as well as water contamination and pollution, to mention a few. It is therefore important that we pause and reflect on how we can individually and collectively commit to and make a positive impact and difference to these numerous and interrelated environmental issues. We all can by making responsible choices, adopting sustainable practices, such as reducing our carbon footprint, protecting natural habitats, phasing out the use of single-use plastics, all contribute towards safeguarding the earth for future generations. NCF pursues the conservation of nature and its resources with the aim of improving the quality of life, both in the present and the future. The organization is under the legal ownership of a board of trustees under the able leadership of President Izoma Philip Asiodu, who along with other trustees have managed the organization's assets and carried out its purposes for the past 22 years. The organization is governed by a board, the National Executive Council, made up of captains of industry, accomplished and committed men and women, recently headed by my humble self, who provides strategic direction to help the organization achieve its purpose. The day-to-day management is under the leadership of the Director General, Mr. Joseph Onoja, PhD, who is seated there. Can you stand up and wave? Who leads a formidable management team and staff. This lecture is made possible year on by Chevron Nigeria Limited, our sponsors. Without diving into the lane of the family member who is going to take the vote of thanks, it will amount to lack of appreciation if I do not acknowledge and thank Chevron, who in addition to funding this lecture series, powers our offices at LCC offices, the Lekki Conservation Center, as well as sponsors the awards that will be given out later today. Chevron representative, can you please stand up again for recognition? Thank you very much indeed for your support. Lekki Conservation Center, I thought I need to say something about it because unfortunately recently we had some social media reports going round about the center. Lekki Conservation Center is an urban park located in the heart of Lekki Peninsula. It is a wetland that is accessed by a 2.8-kilometer broad walk that takes you into a grassland area called the Family Park. At the Family Park, there are ground board games like chess, ludo, snake and ladders, and so on. It also has a children's play area. The Family Park also has space for barbecues, spots for fresh coconut juice, and other delicacies. We also have the Canopy Walk, which was what was in the social media. 401 meters canopy walk, taking from the base of the forest to about 22.5 meters at the canopy of the forest, giving you a view of the surrounding area. It is a destination for corporate organizations to have their team bonding activities and other recreational facilities. Lekki Conservation Center is open for business. We maintain the highest standards of safety and guarantee you an exciting and memorable experience. So please make it a point to visit the Lekki Conservation Center if you've never been, and if you have, again and again, to enjoy our facilities. I would now like to leave us with some conservation tasks to implement by the 23rd annual lecture, which will hold, God willing, in the traditional month of January 2025, the month of late Chief Ezeudu's birth and death. January 7th, birth, January 8th, death. Please listen attentively, because these are tasks that you perform, and by God's grace, let us know next year how you have gotten on. The first one, personally or facilitating if your back is bad and you can't bend, to plant a minimum of 6 trees in your neighborhood or community, 1 a month, between now and the next lecture. Also, learn something new about climate change. Raise awareness or set up conservation clubs in your schools, or revive them if they have become moribund. The third one is you must support sustainable practices, recycling, reducing waste, and invest in green technologies. By so doing, you'll be partnering with NCF. I would like to leave us with a quote from Chief Yar'Adua in his biography, Journey from Ekpe, written by Shion Oyeweso at page 206, who, in addressing the Rotary Club of Badagry on September 29, 1984, how many years is that to today? 40 years. Had this to say, and I quote, "I invite you today to join us in the crusade for the preservation of the fruits of the earth, both for our own benefit and also for the use and enjoyment of posterity, for whom they should be held in trust." End of quote. This call to action is even more critical today, 40 years afterwards. Please sit back, relax, listen, learn, and enjoy from our lecturer. Thank you very much for listening.
Please, another round of applause, please. Thank you so much. Thank you. And that is coming from the judge. You better take it serious. You see? Next year, when we come here, we're going to have a report card. We're going to ask you, what have you done for the environment? We're going to ask you, what have you done? So we have 3 assignments before January. In the next 6 months, we have to do it. We must plant a tree. 6 trees, not 1. 6. So 1 per month. That's what we've been asked to do. And then learn something new about environment. Thankfully, we're going to learn something new today about the environment. And then reduce waste. That's the bit I like about that other one. She said a long thing, but I'm taking reduce waste. That's the most important of everything. They said if we don't waste it, it is not a waste. I'm not the one talking today. We are all here to learn. But before we go on to the learning, I have to recognize some people. We have members of the National Executive Council. They've just joined us now. Dame Mary Fatai Williams. Thank you, Ma, for joining us this morning. You're welcome, ma'am. Then Mr. Koye Edu. You're welcome, sir. We also have other dignitaries. Professor K.K. Nwozo, the Dean of the Faculty of Physical Science, who is representing the Vice Chancellor of Odumegwu Ojukwu University, Anambra State. You're welcome, sir. Also, Mrs. Abiola Aminu, HSC Manager, representing the MD CEO of Vitaphone Nigeria Limited, Nigeria PLC. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. So we move on. I'm going to call Dr. Joseph Onoja, one of those I trouble every time, to introduce to us the guest speaker. Welcome, sir.
I will stand on existing protocol that has been elaborately established by my very distinguished board chair. Okay. By my very distinguished NEC chair, Honorable Justice Adebi. Thank you very much, ma. And then I will read the profile of our speaker. Here with me, I have Mr. Kevin Juma, the African Director of Climate Director at the Nature Conservancy based in Nairobi, Kenya. In this role, Kevin leads the development and execution of TNC's Africa's climate adaptation and mitigation strategies. This includes developing a robust and scientifically sound theory of change to accelerate and scale the department of nature-based solutions to help realize TNC's Africa's 2030 climate mitigation goals and designing and implementing TNC's Africa Climate Adaptation Strategy. He previously led the development of TNC's Africa Forest Carbon Catalyst, AFCC, a $10 million philanthropic facility that aims to develop a pipeline of high quality and high integrity natural climate solutions. And I'm glad to announce that NCF will be tapping into that because of his coming. This facility has supported more than 22 projects with upfront financing and technical assistance. He has also led the design of the second phase of the AFCC, which will provide revolving loans and recoverable grants to get projects to market through a mix of philanthropy and blended finance. Kevin's professional journey spans across various sectors. Before joining TNC 7 years ago, he had gained valuable experience in the private, public, and profit sectors, honing his skills and knowledge in different environments. Kevin holds a BSc in Forestry, honors from the Moi University, Kenya, and an MSc in Development Finance from the Kenya College of Accountancy. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Mr. Kevin Juma, our speaker.
Thank you. I'm really privileged to be joining you today as the guest speaker during the 22nd Chief Asiodu Memorial Lecture. I was informed that in Nigeria we say standing on existing protocol, but I'll do as we Kenyans do it, recognizing all the protocols present here, especially the NEC chairperson, Honorable Justice DB, the NEC members of council, and the family of Chief Asiodu. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as I've been introduced, I'm Kevin Juma. I'm the Africa Climate Director with the world's largest conservation NGO known as the Nature Conservancy. It's not a Kenyan-based NGO, it's a global NGO. I'll start my lecture by introducing the organization I work for, and then we'll be coming to the topic of the day. So, as I've mentioned, the Nature Conservancy was started in 1951 through grassroots action and has grown to become one of the most effective and wide-reaching conservation NGO in the world. We are present in more than 70 countries globally. We have more than 400 scientists. Those are some of the impacts down here that we've delivered. We've developed what we are calling ambitious goals and audacious goals for 2030. Chief among them is reducing carbon emissions, storing 3 gigatons of carbon dioxide emissions yearly by 2030.
Look at this. It's the year 2030, and it's a beautiful day. For the first time in our lives, climate emissions are beginning to stabilize. And while we're feeling the effects of climate change, nature is helping us be more resilient. More trees are cooling our communities, and restored reefs and wetlands are protecting our coasts from rising seas and storms. Our lands, ocean and freshwater, and the communities that depend on them are returning to health. We just need to get there. Somehow. The gap in front of us is the widest we've ever faced. More than 1 million plant and animal species face extinction. And since 1970, climate emissions have increased by 90%, and they are still increasing. These interconnected crises are accelerating. Delay is not an option. At the Nature Conservancy, we're working with partners, communities, and decision makers across the globe to help bridge the gap during this defining decade. And the best way forward is together. So we've set the biggest, most ambitious goals in our history. These goals and the pathways to achieve them directly support the world's most important environmental commitments, like the Paris Climate Agreement and the Global Biodiversity Framework. Grounded in science, these goals represent how the Nature Conservancy can contribute to what the world needs most during these critical years. So, let's explore our goals for 2030 and see how achieving them helps us build a bridge to a better future. We'll reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 3 billion metric tons a year. That's nearly 10% of the total reductions the world needs to avoid the worst effects of climate change. We'll meet this target by unlocking the power of nature to absorb carbon, helping to transform food systems, and supporting the world's transition to clean energy. To reverse the loss of nature, world leaders have agreed to protect 30% of land, ocean, and fresh water. So we'll help by conserving 650 million hectares of diverse habitats such as forests and grasslands. That's an area twice the size of India. And that's just on land. We'll also conserve 4 billion hectares of ocean area, more than 10% of the entire ocean, by working with communities to create protected areas and thriving fisheries. Okay, let's head back to shore. We'll help 100 million people adapt and become more resilient to climate change by conserving and restoring habitats that protect communities from severe floods, wildfires, heat, and drought. And we'll conserve 1 million kilometers of river systems, enough to stretch around the world 25 times, and 30 million hectares of lakes and wetlands. That's like 3 Lake Superiors or 10 Lake Tanganyikas. And finally, we will do this by supporting the leadership, authority, and knowledge of 45 million people whose well-being and livelihoods are directly tied to nature's health, like farmers growing sustainable cacao trees in Brazil, and indigenous peoples managing grasslands with traditional fire in Australia. Now, the beauty of these goals is how the pathways to achieve them intersect and work together to create results that will endure far beyond 2030. We all want one future where people and nature thrive, and it's within our reach. It won't be easy, but with your determination and support, we can be the bridge that takes us there. Together, we'll find a way.
So that's about the Nature Conservancy. And in Africa, so we blending site-based conservation work as well as cross-cutting strategies that cuts across land, fresh water, oceans, and climate, with presence in 9 countries, though we are working with partners in other countries, and more than 200 staff in Africa. So that's it about the Nature Conservancy. So we're coming to nature and carbon markets. So the world needs to reach net zero by 2050 or earlier. So net zero here means countries and companies must reduce their greenhouse gas emissions as much as possible in the next 25 years, and then use carbon markets to cancel out any emissions that remain in 2050. So net zero here refers to this idea. We don't know how to reach net zero. So we'll reduce emissions as much as we can that remains. So carbon markets would be critical really in helping us achieve the net zero targets. So we are seeing massive growth in net zero commitments since 2019, but very few companies and countries are decarbonizing as fast as they should to reach net zero by 2050. So around 90% of companies are off track in meeting their net zero commitments. So carbon markets are critical to net zero progress by providing a tool. It's not the only tool in the toolbox, but it's a critical tool for countries and companies to fund additional climate action. However, the single and the most important thing for the world and the global climate goals is to transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy as fast as possible. So carbon markets should only be used to compensate for emissions that cannot otherwise be eliminated and must never be used for greenwashing. So if you're looking at the role of carbon markets in net zero, it could be used in multiple ways. First of all is help companies and governments catch up on net zero. So many companies and governments are very far behind on their net zero progress, as I mentioned earlier. So carbon markets can be used for some portion of them catching up. The United Nations says we must reduce emissions by 50% by 2030. So we must take action now for carbon markets to help us make that possible. Secondly, it could be used to address residual emissions for the long run. So in the long run, carbon markets will be used to clean up what we are calling residual emissions. So once a company or a country has reduced emission as much as technology allows, then carbon markets can help remove emissions that remain, making the net part of the net zero possible. And lastly, the third part to it is helping fix what we are calling overshoot. So in the long run, carbon markets will be used to clean up residual emissions. Once a company or a country has reduced finally, if the world doesn't decarbonize fast enough, we may overshoot. So a safe temperature for the planet, so carbon markets can be used to fund mitigation opportunities to limit the overshoot. So in case we go beyond the temperature limit that we've prescribed by 2050, then carbon markets can help us correct the overshoot. But then we need to ask ourselves, what is a carbon market? So I just talked about the relationship of carbon markets, how it helps us deliver on the net zero targets, its relationship with the global goal. So I'll play a very short video, 2 minutes, and explain to bring home what carbon markets is.
You are here. See this tiny dot heating up like there's no tomorrow? Yep, that's us, heading full speed toward a disastrous 3 degrees Celsius temperature increase in the next century or so. And this is where we actually need to be, 1.5 degrees Celsius. Small miscalculation, big consequences. We have less than 10 years to fix it. And all this carbon pollution in the atmosphere pushing the temperature higher and higher. Okay, it's about time we start using all the tools we have. Because the emissions we're cutting right now don't, well, cut it. That's where carbon markets come in. Carbon markets are based on something we've been doing since the dawn of time: exchange. After all, we exchange everything. Glances, ideas, gifts, currency. So why not carbon emissions? Or rather, credit for reducing emissions. We still need to stop pumping carbon into the air. There's no way around that. But implementing the technology we need to reach zero emissions will take time we don't actually have. After all, we can drive electric cars, but right now planes still need to burn fuel. Building cities and houses releases even more carbon. But we still need a roof over our heads while we fight climate change. That's why we need to actually take this carbon out of the air and store it someplace where it can't heat up the planet. The upside? Trees do just that. They store carbon for a living. The downside? We have a habit of cutting too many of them down. But here's the thing. We can turn this around. Carbon markets help handle today's hardest to reach emissions by basically paying people to leave more trees standing. In exchange for some of the carbon pollution a company can't stop today, they can pay someone else, like a landowner, to protect trees they might have planned to cut down, ensuring they keep pulling more carbon out of the air for years to come. That's the real kicker. Carbon markets don't just reduce emissions today, they're buying the tree power we will need to help us reach zero emissions on the balance sheet forever. They're not a perfect solution, but we're in a race against time. You are here. Time to get moving.
So in its simplest form, as I've indicated there, carbon market connects someone who has carbon pollution or emissions that they want to clean up. So it could be a company or a country, but they have money to do so. And they are connected with another country that has opportunity to clean up the pollution, so planting trees, for example, but lacks the money to invest or making that happen. Then the carbon credit producers get money to plant trees or do reforestation projects, and the carbon credit buyers get to claim the benefit produced by those trees. So in a nutshell, that's how it works. So hope we are all together. The next question I would like us to look at is, how does nature help? What is the role of nature in all this?
The 2020s, things were never the same after that. That's when we saved the world. Only we almost didn't. It all changed once we realized the difference working with nature could make. Back then, we were all about electric cars, renewable energy, reducing our dependence on fossil fuels. And they were all crucial, but on their own, they never would have been enough. We were already facing an extinction-level threat. We thought we were doing a lot, but we needed to do even more. Enter nature. The most sophisticated system for processing greenhouse gases in the universe only had hundreds of millions of years on us. We had to stop the planet from warming more than 1.5 degrees Celsius compared to the start of the 20th century. Turns out we had to be kind to nature. Hear me out. Stopping the destruction of existing forests, grasslands, and wetlands pulled 3.9 billion metric tons of carbon out of the atmosphere. Smarter farming and forestry techniques cut another 5.1 billion tons. And restoring the forests and wetlands we had lost scrubbed another 2. That's 11 billion tons of carbon removed from the atmosphere. That's like a string of SUVs stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic stretching from here to the moon 56 times over. That's 1/3 of the emission reductions we needed. How's it work, though? Pick a tree. Any tree. Look closer. Trees do this awesome thing called photosynthesis, where they soak up rays of sun and pluck carbon from the air to feed themselves. They literally eat the stuff that traps heat in our atmosphere. And have you heard of mangroves? They're like trees, but they live along the coast near bays and beaches. They became all the rage when word got out they could store 5 times more carbon than their landlocked counterparts. Plus, as they age, trees, all plants really, deposit their carbon into soil. Other plants use that to grow, some of which get eaten by animals, like us, which release carbon back into the atmosphere, starting the whole process over again. It's called the carbon cycle, and it worked really well for a really long time until we overloaded the system by burning fossil fuels and cutting down too many of our forests. It can look very natural now, but protecting and restoring nature at a global level was one of the hardest things we've ever done, and we still had to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels. But once we realized it would take more than switching to renewable energy, once we really partnered with nature to reduce our carbon footprint, and also to live on a better planet, that's when we really started to save the world.
I promise that's the last video that we'll be watching. So I've summarized whatever we just watched into this slide deck. So scientists from the nature conservancies and other partners found that natural climate solutions could provide about a third of the cost-effective climate solutions the world needs to meet the global climate goals. This finding is also supported by IPCC's 6th assessment report of the global climate science. So about 11 gigatons or 11 billion tons of carbon dioxide and equivalent, and with actions to protect intact lands, such as protecting grasslands, and also managing our working lands, putting better productivity in our timberlands, croplands, and managing our grazing lands better. But also there are actions here to restore native cover, so restoring forest as well as restoring croplands. So it's impossible to really meet the global climate goals without really protecting, restoring, and managing our working lands over a vast scale. Natural climate solutions like reforestation, if you look at them, stopping deforestation, improving management of forests and grasslands, make almost 50% of the supply of carbon credits today, and there's still much room for growth. So carbon markets are really poised for a rapid increase or rapid growth. If you look at analysis by different organizations, they are estimating that it could be, Barclays, for example, estimated that it could go up to $250 billion, and different groups like Citigroup and the rest estimated 50 billion. So different analyses have really projected that the growth could really increase, as indicated. Currently, we are at about 2 billion. That is in the voluntary carbon markets. However, there are criticism, and I think most of you are aware or have heard about the criticism around the carbon markets in the past few years, the past few months. And this revolves really the science that is used to calculate the emissions reduction claims that is not strong enough, or they are not strong enough. And also that the local people, the communities or the stewards of these natural resources are not adequately compensated, or they are not generating climate benefits by either protecting or restoring nature. So we've been seeing that, and some of the criticism are right and must be urgently addressed, because if that doesn't happen, without quality, the market would collapse from lack of confidence. There would be reputational risk. There would be loss of financial tool to support natural climate solution, as well as lack of motivation for shifting behavior. We've seen several issues that we like to avoid. There are several poorly designed, poorly implemented projects that does not only fail to meet climate objectives, but could also cause human rights violation, adversely impact on biodiversity, increase, instead of reducing GHG emissions, could also increase emissions if they are poorly designed, and undermine confidence and therefore viability of the entire carbon markets. So we are seeing credibility concerns, a lack of proper and robust accounting on emissions reductions claim that is really currently affecting the projects. And most projects are also overstating the emissions reductions claims, and they are having inaccurate reporting. There are also issues of potential land grabs resulting from governance, mainly governance issues. So unclear ownership rights that hinder really determination of carbon rights. There is lack of ownership models that hinder proper development and at times diverting benefits. And there also are other unintended consequences. There is risk or a pitfall of carbon markets cheapening the value of natural resources through inadequately priced carbon credits. The market mechanism as it's currently structured rewards future emissions reduction over historical carbon dioxide emissions reduction. So what that means is the market mechanism rewards or provides incentive for behavior change going into the future. It doesn't reward activities that you've done, for example, to protect your existing forest. So if the deforestation is low, then the current mechanism, you might not benefit from carbon credit schemes as a result of lack of additionality. So what would happen is there is a pitfall that is likely to create perverse incentive where people would deforest, for example, to access the market mechanism. So that's a pitfall that we need to look at. But also there's the pitfall of ignoring the burden of emissions responsibilities, especially from the developed nations. So what do we need to do? We need to upgrade from carbon markets 1.0 to what I'm calling carbon markets 2.0. So upgrading to version 2.0, we'll be looking at both supply and demand side. I'm sorry, I'm not able to clearly see because of, I think, reflection or something. But on the supply side, we have the Integrity Council for the Voluntary Carbon Market. So they set supply side rules that ensures high quality carbon credits are developed based on best practice and latest science. They have what we are calling the core carbon principles. So it will also provide safeguards for communities, safeguards for indigenous people, especially that are living where the projects are being developed. The second one is the Voluntary Carbon Markets Integrity Initiative that is really setting clear rules on the demand side, on the purchase of credits, on how companies can and cannot use carbon credits on their journey to net zero. We must also ensure that the upgrading the version 2.0 aligns with all the global goals. So the Paris Agreement, the Sustainable Development Goal, as well as the biodiversity plans. So to develop what we call high integrity, scalable, investable carbon markets, what do we need to do? We need to develop one global carbon market. It has more or less two sides. The voluntary carbon markets, I'll be explaining them, compliance carbon markets, and Paris agreements under the Article 6. So we need one large carbon market, not several small markets that don't work together. The key will be some shared rules across the market so that carbon credits can move seamlessly between voluntary carbon market and Paris agreement, compliance, and vice versa. And initiatives, as I've mentioned, ICVCM in the previous slide, could be key to making this possible. I quickly want to share what's happening in Africa. Opportunity here is largely untapped. If you look at the continent, we are contributing about 5% of the global market pie, but there is potential. So if you look at in sub-Saharan Africa, 65% of carbon credits issues are from voluntary carbon markets, mostly in about 5 countries. Can you hear me from the back? Just want to ensure we're together. So Kenya, Zimbabwe, Democratic Republic of Congo, Ethiopia, and Uganda contribute to the greater share. And voluntary carbon markets, if you're able to see, is a centralized marketplace where different individuals, organizations, governments, companies can buy and sell credits. I think some must be asking, where is Nigeria? We'll be talking about that, but there is potential for Nigeria to generate up to 30 million tons of credits annually by 2030. That is according to estimates by Africa Carbon Markets Initiative. So there is that potential to generate. So South Africa is an exception here, and it operates within what we are calling compliance markets, utilizing a national cap tax, so you call it cap and trade system. And the compliance, if you can read there, they are markets set up by regulated entities that meet legally binding greenhouse gas emission reduction targets. So the targets are normally set by national, regional, or international agreements. Yeah, so if you're looking at the supply of carbon credits between 2016 and 2021, Africa contributed about 11% of the global carbon credits issued, with only 2% of their maximum annual capacity for credits tapped. But during the period, demand for credits grew by 36%. So this demand signals a substantial opportunity for transformative economic and development advancement for the continent. So we have opportunities that are rising in the continent that I would want to address. First of all, there is opportunity for Africa as a continent to take charge of our affairs and meaningfully participate in carbon markets under the Paris Agreement. The previous Kyoto Protocol that established the clean development mechanism, I think Africa contributed only 2% of that market share. So this is now an opportunity to tap into voluntary carbon markets, compliance or regulated markets, as well as the trade in Article 6 that allows the transfer of credits, or we call them mitigation outcomes, between one country and the other for meeting the nationally determined contributions. I think there's also an opportunity for Africa region to develop carbon hubs. Having developed 22 projects in the continent, and I'll be talking about them, we don't have technical capacity in the continent. We are importing labor along the entire value chain. And there is opportunity here to develop new skill sets for Africa population. People who are going to do monitoring, reporting, and verification, development of registries and exchanges is an opportunity that I think we can tap into. So further, if we look at initiatives being developed, like in Nigeria and the West African region, we have the West African Alliance on Carbon Markets and Climate Finance, providing advocacy, providing tools, providing resources for advancement of carbon markets initiatives or for climate action in this region. There is also the continent-wide Africa Carbon Markets Initiative that really seeks to grow, turbocharge or accelerate the growth of Africa's voluntary carbon markets. It aims to support governments, communities to create 100 million jobs and in Africa by 2050. So those are some of the opportunities that we have here. I want to take a few minutes to just talk about the challenges that we've seen, even as we are talking about opportunities for developing carbon credits. The first one is lack of affordable and equitable financing. I talk about it in two ways. So most projects lack upfront financing for the technical design and development of projects. And at times, they could be financed by investors that take up long-term share of carbon credit revenues, even 20 years or 30 years. As they take up carbon credit revenues for payment of their original investment, resulting in sustained value extraction. So what that means, if NCF was to develop a carbon project and they don't have the requisite financing to dedicate, to bring technical expertise, to assist them in the technical design, to bring in the technical experts to look at the feasibility, viability, financial models for developing the project, an investor would come in. But the investor who comes in is likely to take a long-term position. They would say, I'm giving you $1 million to develop the project, for example, but then I want to be an equity or shareholder in this project for 20 years. So there'll be value extraction that instead of these resources would have been going for climate action and supporting communities, there is an investor somewhere who would be extracting value for a long time. But still, some of these projects are really risky at the upfront. So a rational investor would not come to invest in a de-risk if a project is not de-risked. So they really need a project that is de-risked. All the studies have been completed, and it is near what we call bankability. So it's investable. That's when it would attract. So most people are not able to support the early stages. They also lack of few quality and bankable projects, especially at scale, that can deliver climate action at scale. There are complex regulatory challenges in countries, at times unclear, and it is difficult and complex from country to country, making investment difficult. Informal land tenure customs and systems. I will be giving an example of a project where a community got the first title. I think maybe here you call them title deeds, the right to own land. That is very critical. Demonstration of ownership in carbon project is very critical. There is also limited understanding and awareness of carbon markets. What is all this? Be it with the developers, be it the regulators, there is limited understanding and awareness, inconsistent and undeveloped regulatory frameworks, and of course, lack of technical expertise. I want to just show a few projects to demonstrate how this looks like. So what is rewarded in a carbon project? So a carbon credit, we were talking about a market, an exchange. So what is a credit now? So it's a certificate on the performance of a carbon project measured by either reduction or removal of carbon dioxide or carbon dioxide equivalent from the atmosphere. So 1 ton of emissions avoided or removed equals 1 carbon credit. So there is no reward for simply having trees on your land. Performance is generated by change in land management system that creates land use and land behavior change. So the reward is the additional action that will lead to reduction or removal that would otherwise not occur. It needs to be attributed to project's intervention. So you cannot, if you just have trees on your land, you cannot be eligible to a carbon credit scheme. It must have been a bare land, and you demonstrated that you needed carbon finance to keep those trees standing. So it must have been a change of land use, a change of behavior from bare to restored, from degraded forest to restored forest. So projects should design benefit sharing agreements that prioritize equitable distribution of project benefits among local communities and indigenous people. And I would quickly like to talk about the Africa Forest Carbon Catalyst that launched. I helped found this in 2021. We've deployed $10 million to support 22 projects in 9 countries, including Nigeria, Sierra Leone. As you can see in the map, the black dots indicate where the project sites are. And really, the Africa Forest Carbon Catalyst was formed to address the challenges that I mentioned, providing upfront financing, providing technical assistance and operational advice, helping projects to successfully seek investments, and helping unlock more natural climate solution pathways. We've supported 22 projects, and now we are just about to launch the second phase that will be providing later stage financing. We call it bridge funding, to help get the projects to access market. So the initial design was to provide early stage initial support, but we realized due to the current market uncertainties, financiers are not investing in projects. So we want to support the high quality projects that have completed feasibility to get to validation, verification, and issuance of carbon credits. Just to point, I want to give examples of 2 or 3 projects here to just demonstrate how communities will be benefiting. This one project in Tanzania, known as Yar'Adua Valley. So they are the Hadza community. This project is operated by a social enterprise known as Carbon Tanzania that are working on projects that are reducing emissions from deforestation and degradation. They followed one of the standards we call Plan Vivo. Why I wanted to share this as an example is 60% of gross revenue from the project goes directly to the community. And of course, 10% is shared within the different governments. This is a unique project because it received, for the first time, that the community, the Hadza, who are hunters and gatherers, having stayed in Yar'Adua Valley for 40,000 years, it's only in 2011 that they received their first ever group certificate of customary rights of occupancy that allowed them to develop these projects. So the community at that instance had rights to develop 20,000 hectares of forest. They had rights over 20,000 hectares of forest, and the project is currently supporting livelihoods of more than 2,500 community members. The second one I would like to mention is Mikoko Pamoja project. And why I'm mentioning this is to show a different pathway. So this is a mangrove conservation and restoration. I know Nigeria, you have mangrove resources. So there is potential for developing what we are calling blue carbon. And this is just a small, tiny project. If you're looking at 3,000 tons, it's a small project of maybe 1,000 hectares. But the benefits are enormous. The project has received numerous awards, including Equator Prize and several international best practices. Finally, Kasigao project. This is the first project that became VCS, CCB validated and verified. So there is a standard body known as VERA. The first project in 2011 that got voluntary carbon certification certificate, as well as climate and community and biodiversity certificate. That is called triple gold certification. It was the first project in the world. As a result of the carbon credit revenues, they've invested in 250 projects since the launch. 30,000 students have benefited from education infrastructure, job creation for 400 communities. So it's first of its kind in the region. So distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as I conclude, I think we've talked about jargon. I'd promised to do 45 minutes, and I'm hoping to be within that. I think the first thing that I would like to share here, as we are looking at the opportunity here, Africa should rightfully play a bigger role in the global carbon markets, reflecting its significant contribution to mitigating the effects of climate change. We should invest in the development of an entire value chain, carbon market value chain, from designing, financing, capacity building, and trading in viable carbon markets, so that we retain value in the continent. As I mentioned, all these are services that we import. We need well-developed mechanisms that deliver maximum return and benefits to the resource stewards, that is the communities and people sitting here, and the collective support of the governments to ensure durable and lasting impacts. Nigeria could play a leading role due to the voice that you have in the regional geopolitical scenario to help us push for an increase in the value of Africa's carbon credits. It would be disheartening that communities have worked to restore their lands over 8 years, and then once they generate the carbon credits, it gets to market at less than $10 per ton, whereas in other areas people are selling at 50 and 70. So African continent seems to be disenfranchised in terms of pricing, and of course pricing differs from project type to another. But with the voice that we have in Nigeria, we could push for an increase in the value for our credits. Finally, there is need for a framework for carbon markets. One, to provide oversight so that people don't continue with the business as usual, but it should also not be punitive to push away investment. The first step is to start with aligning the frameworks with the Integrity Council for Voluntary Carbon Markets. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Round of applause again, please. Thank you. That's the beauty of coming to the Asiodu Memorial Lecture every year. You go home knowing that you've learned something new, something interesting, and above all, you're not just helping the environment, but sometimes you help your pocket. And that's what we've learned today. If we go together, planting that tree, the 6 trees that were telling us, that we were told earlier this morning by the Justice that we should plant, hopefully we'll come up with something interesting, and then we'll be talking about carbon market and nature-based solution. Before we go to the question and answer, I've seen some people trying to record some of the things that we have that you were saying. But then, because NCF has gone green, we didn't print the brochure that we usually do every year. So just, you see a code there on your program. Just scan it. You get everything. I can assure you, it's because we've gone green. We're not wasting anything. We're not doing papers. Yes, thank you, sir. Yes, yes, loud it. Thank you. So you can have that there. And then I also want to welcome Admiral Okoja, AOS, retired. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Thank you. Also, Dr. Tunde Ajayi, the GM of LASEPA, thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you. Right, we'll now go to the main thing, the question and answer session. This is where interesting things come up. I know so many of you have something to ask. You want more clarification. Some of the things that our guest lecturer today has said. Kindly, just raise it up a bit for me, please. Thank you. You have question? Yes, yes, yes. The student, I'm looking at, my eyes are on you. You have interesting questions. Right. I've seen one ma'am there. Any other question? Right. 2. Going, 3. Right, so we're gonna do it, in groups. So the ma'am there, no, let's start with the member of the neck. I'm sorry, I'm being passionate now. Right, so we have Mr. Majakudumi, Evangelist Majakudumi. He's gonna do the first one for us. Yes, he's the environment evangelist, so I've learned. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. A very enlightening lecture indeed. Habari yako mazuri sana. And definitely the compensation on the incentive for regrowth is absolutely welcome. It is so important. You know, as you said in the short video that you put there, we're running out of time. And as the Secretary General of the United Nations has said, backed up by the World Meteorological Organizations and many, many other groups, there's literally about 20 to 15 years. Anyway, the question is, could you clarify why the protection of the existing forests is not being given incentive? Because those existing forests are also sequestering CO2. Thank you very much. That's the question.
Thank you, sir. Did you get that, please? So would you like him to repeat? Okay, you got it. Thank you. Kindly help me with the microphone. So I have the ma'am at the back. Yes, the ma'am at the back. I'm going to take 3 now. We do the answering, then we'll come back for the next round, right? Thank you. Yes, that's her. No, the ma'am. Yes, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm a lady, I'm not a man. Thank you.
I said ma'am, madam.
Okay, ma'am. We were hearing man. The question, and it's kind of like a comment question. My name is Amelia Dokwesi. Amelia Dokwesi from the Air Recycling Conservation Foundation. The question is, I saw the map where carbon credits in East Africa is very viable and it's already in use. But I don't know. The question I want to ask the gentleman is, do you think Nigeria is ready? Nigeria is very big in a lot of things, but I don't think we're big enough for what you've brought forward. Because when it comes to the lay part of conservation, apart from the NCF, and like eco restoration, very few. Our Nigerians are not very big in conservation yet. And it's almost like you're taking us from nursery school to university, in the sense that this is almost like the stock exchange of conservation. That's carbon crediting. But we've not even done the basic, which is educating the people on plastic. Everywhere, we don't even know how to do our plastic properly. So what my question is, how do you think Nigeria is going to key into this? It's like you're taking us to algebra, when ordinary arithmetic, really, we've not mastered it. So how do you think we can do that? Move into the university level, which is carbon crediting, when really at the base level, there is barely any noise. There's barely any force on restoring and conservation in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. But the thing is, Yeah, it's okay. You can return the mic. Yes, thank you. But the thing is, we had the Red Plus in Cross River State before now. Of course, he's going to answer that, but I just wanted to know that. So the thing is, we've done, but then this guest speaker is going to. So, gentlemen, yes, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Can we just keep it a bit quiet, please? Thank you. Let's just calm down a bit, and then we'll move on to the next. Okay, sir.
Okay, thank you. I'm Dr. Falarin Owagburai from Olabisi Onabanjo University. We've been talking about reducing the carbon dioxide emission. And time is running out. We are running out of time. So, instead of trying to reduce this emission, can't we also look at the benefit or the opportunity this carbon dioxide emission can actually offer to human? Believe me, there's a current trend of research right now where they are making use of carbon dioxide in the treatment of diseases. I don't know, maybe you are aware of that.
Sorry, you were saying instead of reducing the emission...
Reducing, yes.
So we should not reduce emission?
No. Of course, it's good to reduce.
Okay.
We can also look at it from another way, from another angle.
Okay.
By looking at the benefit of the carbon dioxide. And one of the benefits is right now there's an ongoing research. There's a current trend of research right now where they are making use of carbon dioxide in the treatment of diseases. And that was one of the opportunities I was actually from the carbon credit. Because carbon dioxide, not carbon dioxide in gaseous form, humidified and warmed carbon dioxide. Studies have shown that if inhaled,
okay.
It can.
So you want him to look at, so he's going to give us his
So
opinion
I don't know,
on the two sides.
maybe they are also considering that angle.
Yes, he's going to give us the two
thank
sides, why we should and why we should not. Yes, thank you so much. Right. I think he's the third person. I'm sorry, I'm coming back to you, but I think he's the third person. So we're going to take 5 for the first round. Please make it very brief. Your name, your organization. Very brief, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kevin Juma. We say very big thank you for bringing this awareness to us in Nigeria. And I'd like to direct my question as well to the Board of Directors, NTF. I'm a graduate researcher in Nigerian Institute of Oceanography and Marine Research. And I just want to put this forward to you. Is it possible to extend the concept of this conservation also to the ocean, to the sea? Because there's something that looks so negligent, but it carries much power, and we find it inside our ocean, our lagoons, and that's algae, microalgae and macroalgae. They play a significant role in making sure that they sequestrate all this atmospheric CO2. Yeah, that's one thing. And my question, as I said, is it possible? And while we are even conserving our environment, we can generate money. Number one is this blue bioeconomy we are trying to propose, make people go into it. One thing about algae is that while they are absorbing the atmospheric CO2, they are also using it to produce some bioproducts in them. We can use that to drive our bioeconomy. Number 2, bioremediation and biomitigation. We can at the same time save our ocean. It has been researched that algae can be used to bioremediate industrial waste and also domestic waste. Right. That's another one. Please, the last question. And presently, there's a conference, a world summit, where the global leaders are to gather, COP28 in UAE. The discussion and the unanimous agreement was that we want to phase out fossil fuel. And at the same time, this algae has the potential to give us fossil fuel. And there's a current research now that people are into it, although there's no lead bring out a biofuel from algae that we can use for our engines. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right. The mic. Yes, sir. Here. Him? Yes. Thank you.
I am Dr. Adewumi Adeyemi, Lagos State Forestry Services, a fellow of NCF. It's more of an appeal and commendation than question. Let's be sincere. The comment made by the chairman of the Governing Council of NCF has shown that we are in trouble in Nigeria as regards pollution and deforestation. More especially in Lagos State, where the forest we have now has reduced to 0.2%. 0.2%, and it is expected that we conserve about 20%. Now, over time, NCF have been very supportive to the Lagos State government. So my question and my appeal is that we want to make it locally. I'm looking at the area of carbon market to make sure that people themselves are made to contribute their own quota. A tree like Longifolia polyata can reduce 302 micrograms per meter cube. Now, most of the trees we planted are not compliant. They are not adaptable to the areas we actually needed them. So, the question of my appeal is to NCF to have more of these, more collaborative, and we must commend them. This year's International Day of Forest was hosted and fully supported and funded by NCF. Thank you so much, NCF. Please continue to support us because we appreciate your effort. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So it's a comment, and you are applauding NCF. Thank you very much for that. Now the last one for this round. Right. Not yet. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Standing on existing protocols, David Omawumi from the Eco Restoration Foundation. Quickly, my question to the great guest speaker is, you mentioned about the 22 projects under the Natural Climate Solutions Pathway. Are there still opportunities for conservation projects to, get listed? And my second question is the role of government. Can government organizations or can government MDAs also earn carbon credits, maybe through promoting conservation as a government, not necessarily as an NGO? Can governments earn carbon credits through large infrastructure projects, say like a highway, like the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Road, for example? If it is cutting on anything, can governments earn carbon credits? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I thought government was taking the lead before in Cross River. Sir, please, kindly step forward to answer those questions. And then I'm coming back. The students, my eyes are on you, please. Get the pen, get the paper, write down that question now, and we'll come for you now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Wonderful questions. I'll attempt them with the same order they were raised. So starting with the environmental evangelist. Yes, addressing your question, sir. So I was talking about the current market-based mechanisms. So normally what happens, especially if we are looking at initiatives that are aimed at reducing deforestation and degradation, they are designed to reduce the threats or the contributors or factors that are causing the emissions in that particular ecosystem or project or forest. Normally it's as historical analysis. So they'll use remote sensing and determine how the forest structure has been over the past several years, say 10 years. Use another area of similar ecotype called a reference region to determine what we are calling a baseline. It might even involve, for the foresters who are here, doing a bit of inventory, going to really count trees, look at the density of the affected forest. So once the baseline has been established, the community and the project developer will implement a set of activities that will be aimed at reducing the number of forests that have been historically being lost. So we'll say the baseline is we are losing from a particular forest 20,000 trees annually, but as a result of implementation of activities, we've reduced it from 20 to 10,000. The delta is 10,000, that is what will be calculated or quantified as carbon credits. So it's as a result of historical emissions. Okay? It's emissions that are happening, but you are correcting it. So if a project has been having a net positive gain, it's sequestering an area, for example, it's a forest, and it's not suffered deforestation, then one of the key principles of carbon markets called additionality will not apply. They will say that you don't need carbon finance to protect the forest. So what happens in countries that we are calling high forest, low deforestation, like Gabon, maybe Republic of Congo, this current mechanism doesn't work for them, but there have been other arrangements through the Central Africa Forestry Initiative, SCAFI, that, for example, rewarded Gabon for a performance over, I think, 2016 to 2020, and they got $17 million as a country for keeping their forests intact. So the current mechanism doesn't reward. The other multilateral programs, like with the World Bank's Forest Carbon Partnership Facility, that also has some jurisdictional or broader scale opportunities to reward such countries. So that's the context that I was talking about. The only pitfall, because I talked about this as the pitfalls, if such mechanisms doesn't happen and fast enough, then the countries are likely to revert to unsustainable behavior to access the current existing mechanisms. So if you're only rewarding the people who are deforesting, then we might deforest. So that's a pitfall that we need to look out for, and the countries should not fall into. So that was the context. Okay, thank you. The wonderful lady talked about what Nigeria can do, whether Nigeria is ready. Nigeria is on the runway. Nigeria is ready. This is a wonderful dialogue, a wonderful conversation that has been spearheaded by NCF and NCF leadership and the family of Chief Yar'Adua. I think with the partners such as the Nature Conservancy, I don't believe my role here is just to come and give a lecture and not to establish relationship. And that ties to the question my brother asked, whether there is room for additional projects, right? So ours is to cultivate and develop more projects. But I believe Nigeria has nationally determined contribution targets, NDC targets, that is really spelling out the country's climate adaptation action plans, as well as the mitigation plans. Nigeria formed the National Council of Climate Change, and Nigeria has pledged to be net zero by 2060. Those are very fundamental processes and pathways that are showing us that the country is on a positive trajectory. I think, and this is a rallying call, I've rarely or not recently been in a room with so many academicians. I've heard many people from universities. There is the role that academicians, universities can play in consultation and in partnership with NCF and other agencies. NCS can lead the forefront in helping push for these markets, but the science underpinning this needs to be done in the laboratory, the students, and everybody. We need the new generation of academicians to help address this. So I think the room is properly balanced to help make the plane fly. There was a wonderful comment on benefits of CO2 from the doctor there. I welcome it very much. And what I know, there are also technology-based removals, not scalable, but very expensive, where we remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and fix them on rocks permanently or for a number of years. But use of carbon dioxide in treatment of diseases, that's a wonderful and welcome idea. And we hope to get such wonderful ideas from research rooms to implementation and help scale if these bad gases could be put to good use. I think the next one, Dr. Noja, was to NEC. And the wonderful question from fellow forester, right tree in the right place, and I think it was a comment on more collaboration with NCF. Finally, role of governments. Apart from creating the robust regulatory frameworks, I think governments under the current Article 6 of Paris Agreement is going to play a very big role. One, in ensuring that mitigation outcomes within the jurisdiction of a country meets the country's nationally determined contribution targets, and then they are allowed also to trade bilaterally with other countries. The framework under Article 6 is being created, and I believe there is a big role that governments are going to play, not only by setting up offices, setting up registries, authorizing, monitoring the transfer of mitigation outcomes. So government is really pivotal, not only on creating the rule book and guidelines and frameworks, but also to ensure that the country meets the pledges to UNFCCC as well as trade under the Article 6. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please kindly hold on to that.
About the seagrass you talked about, yeah, there are sea algae that you talked about. Seagrass also fall in that category as well. But the part that Nigeria can play in blue economy is mostly about the mangroves. And that is why we try to play as much as we can. Because the Nigeria's coastal area is not as very diverse in terms of the seagrasses and the algae you're talking about, but it's still a conversation that we'll continue to have. I know and Yuma has that expertise, and that's why we are partners, to be able to partner with that and bring up some of those ideas that we continue to have. We believe that we are leading the charge, but we don't claim to know everything. And that is why partnership is very important, leaving no one behind as we continue to push. And for the Lagos State government comments, we are very pleased to continue to partner with Lagos State, not just Lagos State, but other partners as well, to ensure that we continue to push things the way that it should go. And we are open to such collaborations, especially for Lagos State, where we have our forest estates being decimated. We need to see how, especially for developers, estate developers, how we can build with nature, not against nature. We don't have to clear everywhere for our estates to come on board. Let's find a way to ensure that we build together with nature instead of always clearing nature. Because as I always say, nature will come back and bite, and it will bite very hard. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think the battery of this one is flat now. Right. I promise I would be asking the students if they have any question. Do you have question? Going. All right. Please, can we have a consensus amongst you? Can one person? I'm sorry. Please, one. Okay, right. I'm going to bring the microphone to you.
Okay, so my name is Mademezia Mildred. I come from Lagos Anglican Girls Grammar School, Surulere. And my question is, how exactly the projects that are taken to promote this topic, how is it going to reach the rural areas of our country? Because Nigerians are very, very persistent when it comes to these kind of things.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's an interesting one. I'm going to go to another person. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Sami Aliat. I'm from Modern High School. My question is that is global warming and climate change, is it the same thing or are they synonymous?
Thank you very much. Is global warming and climate change the same thing? Right. I'm going to another school. Your name, please, and your school.
Good day, everyone. My name is Adelako Elizabeth from Bulky Depth School. And my question is, how can we students actively participate in the carbon markets? Because it's not going to be easy because we are just students.
Thank you very much. How can we participate in the carbon market as students? Right. I'm coming here now.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Coyote. And when Mr. Kevin was giving his lecture, he mentioned on how the points are measured and that it's not, you can't just say there was this land here and then the carbon absorbed. Like, how do you determine whether that land there was planted by someone and over the years, or the carbon absorbed by it? How do you measure that? How do you determine the credibility of that land and the trees planted?
Thank you very much. And those are the many questions we ask when we talk about carbon market. I'm sorry, I'm not coming to adult. I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. We don't have time now. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt the program. I'm sorry we're running a bit late, but somebody has to leave. So can we have all NEC members with our Chevron rep, our guest speaker, and DG, just to take a quick photograph before this person leaves? Please, all NEC members, please. Our Chevron rep, please. DG, where are you? Please. All NEC members, please. Dr. Noja. Thank you very much. Please, Chevron and guest speaker, please stay here. Then members of Asiodu family, please, very quickly, for a picture. Asiodu family, all family members, please come forward. All family members, please. Mr. Koyedu, you're wearing 2 caps. Mogaji, Emma Bossa. Sister? Please, all spouses are family. Vashon, sir. After how many years? Emma Bossa. Thank you very much. You can sit down. Thank you. Apologies. So we'll go quickly to the message from Chevron and.
So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Permit me to stand on the already established protocol for this event, and just in the interest of time. So I bring you greetings from the Chairman Managing Director of Chevron Nigeria, who couldn't be here with us today, but I believe he's here with us in spirit because this subject, the subject of the environment is very dear to the heart of Chevron. So I'll just quickly go through his remarks as I wish everybody well for this event. So I'm delighted to be part of the 22nd edition of the annual SL Edu Memorial Lecture. On behalf of Chevron Nigeria, I thank you all for finding time from your busy schedules to be here with us today. Significantly, it is worthy to note that Chief Edu's vision for establishing the Nigerian Conservation Foundation has continued to flourish long after his passing. I commend the President and members of the Board of Trustees, management, and staff of the NCF for sustaining this vision and making the NCF a stronger institution and a foremost authority in nation conversation in Nigeria and beyond. We are glad to be associated with this enduring vision. The topic for this year's lecture, Carbon Credits, Opportunities and Pitfalls, is very apt. As a company, Chevron sees value in advancing a lower carbon future by investing in actions that reduce the carbon intensity of its operations and growing lower carbon businesses. Chevron is a signatory to the Paris Agreement as evidence of our commitment towards advancing the global net zero ambitions outlined in the agreement. Chevron invests in its operations to improve environmental performance while developing new innovative technology and best practices through key projects in energy efficiency, flare reductions, venting, and fugitive reductions. Through key projects in energy efficiencies, renewables, carbon capture, utilization, and storage. In Nigeria, we are glad to be part of the stakeholders working with the National Council, Climate Change Council as they implement actions for the development of key Nigeria's carbon market framework and manual of procedures. Chevron's vision to be the global energy company most admired for its people, partnership, and performance. Our purpose is to develop affordable, reliable, ever cleaner energy that enables human progress. In line with our vision, we have maintained a mutually beneficial partnership with the Nigerian Conservation Foundation, which has produced commendable projects geared towards conserving our environment and building Nigeria's economy. One of the projects is the Lekki Conservation Foundation, built with funds provided by Chevron Corporation in 1992 as a reserved sanctuary for the rich flora and fauna for the Lekki Peninsula and a significant uptake of available carbon dioxide in the environment. Today, the Lekki Conservation Foundation has become one of Africa's most prominent and most diverse urban parks. It attracts tourists from all over the world. The Lekki Conservation Center is also known as a safe habitat for several species of plants and animals going extinct and has attracted several educational researchers. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we are proud to support the annual Chief S.L. Edu Memorial Lecture and sponsor a research grant scheme in memory of Chief S.L. Edu. We believe that to sustain our environment, there's need for continuous research to garner new, better ways to preserve nature. In this regard, since 2006, through the S.L. Edu Research Grant and in partnership with the Nigerian Conservation Foundation, Chevron has continued to award scholarships to doctoral candidates whose research works are on environmental conservation and sustainable development in Nigeria. About 36 PhD students have benefited from the grant since its inception. I would like to congratulate, it's okay to clap please if you want to clap. I would like to congratulate our awardees of today, even as we look forward to their contributions to the body of knowledge in the nature conservation space. I also will urge every one of us to make a personal commitment to preserve our environment. As we navigate this complex landscape and work together to create a more sustainable future for all, let us prioritize environmental integrity and equitable solutions to keep global climate goals within reach. I believe that with the right sensitization and advocacy, we can collectively protect our earth. I thank you all for listening, and I thank our erudite speaker for coming to talk about this topic with us today. Thank you very much.
Let's do it again. Round of applause, please. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Chevron. They are the reason we are here every year. They are the engine that keeps NCF going. I'm still coming back to those questions. Those are interesting questions that must be answered. But before we do that, we would quickly do one or two things. First of all, I want to recognize Mrs. Victoria Onoha, representative of the DG of Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. Thank you so much for joining us today. And also Professor Joshua Bolarinwa, who is representing the DG of the NII. Yes, sir. Thank you. So not just academia we have here, we have manufacturers, we have diplomats. They teach diplomats at NII. Yes. Thank you so much for joining us today. And then we'll just quickly move on to, in his speech earlier, he mentioned the grants that are given to PhD students. So we go there and then we come back to those questions. Is that okay? All right, thank you so much. I just want my friends at the back not to feel as if I don't want your questions answered. We are coming to those questions, right? But let's just quickly do this, the adult stuff, then we'll come back. So I'm just going to call the GM to kindly step forward, please. Thank you so much, sir. Dr. Onoja, thank you. And sir, our speaker. Okay. And then, ma'am. Please.
So, did they give the names of the awardees? Okay, where's that one? So we have two students who were presented with the award. Can we have their certificate, please? Yeah, both of just both. This was a keenly contested award. We had panelists who went through the submissions that were done, and at the end of the day, based on the criteria set forward, we have two winners of this year's Chief Asiodu grant, sponsored by Chevron. The first amongst them is Mr. Wahab Salau. Mr. Wahab Salau. Mr. Wahab Salau is from the Gombe State University, Kashere in Gombe State. Yes, sir. Yeah. Kelvin? Evans, move from there. Yeah. Evans, hold on. And then second, from the University of Calabar, we have Egbe Alexander Echeng. Egbe Alexander Echeng. Is there a space there? Okay. There you go, please go that way. Yeah, the two of them, yes. Okay. Okay, let's go. Okay, yeah, okay.
Can I switch? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so please just hold on, my please, yeah. So, yeah, so you can go. So I will, Kevin, you wait. When you go to present, you present the award to the speaker. All right. So we'll call on the chairperson of our Business Development Committee, in the person of Dame Marie Fatai Williams, to do the presentation on behalf of NCF to the speaker. Sorry.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. We've learned a lot, but this is just the beginning, because we need to cooperate with you to be able to gain from this carbon market. I was going to ask you a question about how can some organizations enter into the voluntary carbon market mix, and how can we do like a Mikoko project that you talked about, because we have a lot of impacted mangrove in Nigeria, especially in the oil producing area. So we need to know the Mikoko project and how we can clean our mangrove and gain carbon credit. Thank you very much for being here.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm still going to ask him to come back because we have to answer those questions now. You see, we want our students to also win the grant on the long run, and I can only do this by having their questions answered, because they need to know what it is like, what it takes to care for the environment and the benefit of the environment, which is what the carbon market is presenting. Before, I'm going to add my own question as well, because some people will say that the carbon market is benefiting the polluter. So, should the polluters keep polluting while we are preserving our forests? Because what we learned today is all about the forest. Nature-based solution is about keeping our forest standing so that our children will see crocodile, they can see the tortoise, they will identify them, the baboons and the gorillas and all. But then, what happened to those that are developed using fossil fuel? Should they keep polluting? They said they're going to cut down coal use. Now they wrapped it up. And they're asking Nigeria, for instance, that we should cut down fossil fuel. Nigeria, too, we are building refinery as we speak. So, carbon market, is he asking polluters, keep polluting? Or what is the balance? Let me just say. So that's my own question to the set of questions that have been asked by our students. So I'm going to ask our guest lecturer to kindly step forward. Yeah. Sir. Thank you very much, sir. So we now have like 6 questions, 4 from the students, 1 from them, and 1 from myself.
Thank you. I'll start with the last question. I think I had it in my pitfalls that we need to ensure that the carbon markets are designed with the relevant, robust international frameworks to avoid business as usual scenario. That is to avoid encouraging polluters to continue polluting, and to also avoid countries and companies making false claims of net zero. So we are calling it greenwashing. Companies talking about what they are doing, or they are making press that they are net zero, but they aren't. So you should avoid such by use of supply and demand side international best practices. There were great questions from the students. One was how students can participate, how planted trees, I think the issue was about claims. If you planted trees and somebody comes and claims credit, I think that was your question. How will this initiative reach rural areas? I can combine them and answer them very quickly. I see people are moving. I think I'm between you and going home. So I think where the action happens is in the rural areas where the natural resources are, where the forest, where the grasslands are, where the wetlands are. So all of us can do something. As the next chairperson had requested and made a rallying call, that we all plant 6 trees between now and January next year. This does not absolve the students. So even students should take charge and plant even more trees. 1 was a minimum per month. So that's how you can participate, and it can reach rural areas. What is required in this scheme is all projects, there is need to demonstrate ownership or having some form of rights over your land. That is what will give confidence to an investor, because it's a long-term investment. For an avoided deforestation project, We ideally want the emissions reductions to be permanent. And we don't want to move it from one forest and displace that emissions to another forest. So you are protecting this forest and somewhere else people are harvesting. So putting those robust protocols and investments require some form of titling, whether it's on a village land, on individual parcels of land, or communal land, or national reserves. There must be some form of ownership. So to avoid people bringing claims, as he rightfully asked, we really need to demonstrate and have a valid ownership or titling of the land where the carbon projects are going to be situated. Thank you. Climate change and global warming. Climate change, so the effects of climate change, which we are seeing, I think let me use that. So the climate has changed as a result of issues related by human impact, how we are farming, how we are living, driving our cars, has released greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. There are also natural causes for the change in climate. So the result of the climate change is global warming, increase or rise in temperature of the earth. Currently we are saying if nothing is done, then the temperature will rise to more than 2 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial levels. So global warming is a consequence of the effects of climate change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. You see, out of the mouth of babes, they say. So now, the end of the matter is what that question is about. What is global warming? What's the difference between global warming and climate change? And you see, we've been told this is a temperature, boom, is going up. And then what can we do? One of the solutions is what we've learned today, which is carbon market. So if we plant trees, if we keep our forests, we can earn money, because the argument has always been that why should we keep the forest? Because when we keep the forest, we cannot develop. So we need to destroy the forest. But then we're saying something different can happen now. We can keep the forest, but then we can earn something out of it. And we can encourage the local community. I think one of the students asked as well, encouraging the local community this time now that we don't just leave it, but now you can earn something from it. And for them to earn something from it, we all need to help them, because we know the people that keep the forest, they don't really have what it takes to go up there, which is why we all have to do something to help them. NGOs work together with Nigerian Conservation Foundation, Nature Conservancy, and then let's help the rural community. We've seen an example here today that we can earn something. We can earn tons, we can save the environment, and then earn money in our pocket. So that's the end of the matter. Well, I didn't say that though. The guest lecturer said it. Right, we'll now move on to the vote of thanks. We're going to the end of today's proceedings. And I'm going to call Mr. Gboyega Edu to please give us the vote of thanks. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I stand on existing protocol. On behalf of the family of Chief Yar'Adua, I would first of all like to extend a big thank you to the Nigerian Conservation Foundation and Chevron for their long-standing commitment and support for environmental causes in Nigeria, and also for putting all of this together. You know, when this lecture series started more than 2 decades ago, the environment was not as topical an issue as it is today. But today, thanks in no small measure to the work of the NCF and similar advocacy groups, we all know about the principal effects of climate change, be it globalization, be it global warming, be it deforestation or desertification, or indeed coastal erosion. I also would like to say a big thank you to our keynote speaker, Mr. Kevin Juma, and the Nature Conservancy from Nairobi in Kenya. Mr. Juma has been able to simplify an otherwise sometimes complex and esoteric topic in carbon credits. He has broken it down into easily digestible, bite-sized components, such that many of us feel a lot more enlightened about what carbon credits is about. And as he said, is an invaluable tool towards us arriving at net zero. So once again, on behalf of the family, thank you all. Thank you, our distinguished guests. Thank you, students. Thank you, members of academia, gentlemen and ladies of the press. I wish you all a safe journey to your various destinations.
And with that, we've come to the end of today's program. Thank you for joining us. But as you step out, remember, you have to plant a tree a month till January. Waste less, reduce your waste, and learn something about climate change. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a pleasant evening, pleasant afternoon, and of course, protect the planet so that the planet can protect you.
Thank you, our powerful MC, Ayola Kazim. I would like to also appreciate Climate Action Africa, their representative, Grace Oluchi. Thank you for coming. The representative of Stanbic IBTC, Okpeyemi Ukoya, thank you. Representative of ATCN, Mrs. Ikechukwu and Ikena, thank you. The representative of Nestle Nigeria PLC, Chinwe Obi. The representative of PAU, Mr. Frank Wigwe, and representative of Heritage Bank, Mrs. Ozena Utulu, representative of Nestle Factory, Sheyitan Defega, and representative of First Bank Nigeria, Mrs. Ismail Omamegbe, and the CEO, founder of Eco Restoration, Prince David Omaomi, thank you for your presence, and also Shoreline Natural Resources Limited, Oputa Clement, thank you for coming, and the representative of LBS, Teresa Daniel Akibo, thank you for coming, and also we have the representative of Sahara Group, Sahara Energy Group, thank you, and we also have representative of SESED from Lagos State University, thank you, and also AD Aqua Ed Consulting Limited, Olabanjo Temitope, thank you. The media organization, STV, Channels, Guardian, This Day, Environment Africa, and all others, thank you for coming. We appreciate everyone. We'll be looking forward to another time that you will honor our invitation. And NCF staff that play critical role behind the scene, and all our vendors, thank you and God bless. You are free to go around to interact. We will be organizing a media interview session right about now. The media can come close to the stage. All the media organizations around, News Agency of Nigeria, everybody you can come around will be granting interview with the speaker and the DG of NCF. Can we have the media please come around with the camera, STV, Channels, NAN, and all others, please come around. Thank you. So let me go. I will call him. He will come here.
Sir.